Good morning, everybody. Jim Feist and Hank Goldberg in Las Vegas. Another big weekend of football. Ohio State smashed Michigan again, as they usually do. And we had a full card of Sunday games in the NFL. A lot of surprises.
You mean they usually score 62 points against them? That was a record.
No, they don't usually get that many, but they have been able to win lately. I think that was 7 straight wins. The 62 is amazing. They haven't played that well all year. But been a lot of good games on Sunday, interesting games. I know you had a pretty good day, Hank.
I did. The Michigan game was a shocker. I thought this was a year that Michigan could actually beat them. But their defense was, Ohio State just did whatever they wanted against them. It was like Michigan didn't show up. And after you were talking about Michigan as a possible Final Four team, and this killed their season. And you just wonder about Harbaugh and why his teams keep getting beat by an Ohio State team that played without passion for basically the whole season, and then they show up for this game, and it makes you wonder about where Ohio State had been all year. It's kind of odd, the whole deal. I'll tell you, the team that's playing well right now is Oklahoma.
A lot of offense, defense is weak. I don't know, who do you think the fourth team in is going to be in the playoff?
Well, you got some playoff games this week coming up, but I'll tell you, the West Virginia, that was a great game. That West Virginia game came out good for me, but I think Oklahoma is the team to keep your eye on. That guy's doing a very good coaching job there, and that quarterback is special. They can score points on anybody. Clemson didn't cover, but they're playing strong right now. It was a rough week for Duke graduates. They got blown out by Wake Forest in football. Their basketball team has got a little bit of an issue in their backcourt right now. I watched an interesting basketball game at the end last night. Miami against
Seton Hall.
The University had a tough loss, but that team they played is pretty good. So, they kind of gave the game away at the end. They made mistakes down the stretch. They were playing at a small gym out in California, and Seton Hall beat them. Seton Hall's very well coached. Seton Hall's got a nice team, and they're getting another guy back, and they're going to be a factor in the Big East. But these Big East teams kind of knock each other off. They're strong, and Coach Willard is a good guy. He's an old Patino assistant and good friend, and Seton Hall is from, they're located in South Orange, New Jersey, which is where I grew up. So I followed Seton Hall for a long time. I was kind of happy to see them beat the U, to tell you the truth.
And Gonzaga pulled off a big victory over the last few days, beating Duke, and that was a hell of a game to watch.
Well, Gonzaga's great. We talked about this the other day, and the Duke shortcoming. Although Duke almost came back and nipped them at the end, they were behind. But for all the talent that Duke has, they don't have a strong point guard. And Seth Greenberg, I talked to Seth about this, and he said, that's their problem, that they don't have, if you get them in a half-court game, they've got a problem. And that's exactly what Gonzaga did. They're well coached. How they get those players to go there, they've got players, they've got a guy from Japan, they've got a guy from South America, and they're just loaded. That's a very good team.
Yeah, and I think there's one of their players isn't even there, and I think he's their potentially higher scorer. I can't remember his name right off bat, but he's not even playing yet.
Well, they've got a big time team, and I don't see them losing in their conference. But there are teams that could beat Duke in their own conference. You know, Virginia can really frustrate teams with their defense, and North Carolina State is pretty good. Duke is not going to just roll over everybody.
No, obviously we saw a little bit of the flaws coming out. I mean, after their first win over Kentucky, everybody thought that they would be like maybe undefeated, but
not everybody. I think I told you at the time that they weren't going to be perfect.
Yeah, it's hard to go perfect. And, when was the last undefeated team in college basketball? That had to be what, UCLA years ago?
See, UNLV was almost perfect.
Almost.
Remember, and then they got beat by Duke in that final game.
Yep, I remember that. I was at the game, actually. That was a long time ago. Anyway, we got a game tonight. You know, unfortunately, the owner of the Houston Texans had passed away in the last few days, and I think we've lost a few owners this year. The Seattle Seahawks owner passed away as well. It's unfortunate, but this is a big game, division game between Tennessee and Houston tonight. That's a big game, and of course yesterday the Colts didn't play the way they had been playing. They didn't cover. They won the game. Andrew Luck is, led this team back into contention. Now
he didn't have a great game, Andrew Luck.
No,
actually, he threw a couple of picks, and Miami blew a 10-point lead, and they got conservative at the end of the game. And the last two possessions, they just tried to protect the lead, and they turned the ball over to them by trying to just running plays and took the ball out of Tannehill's hands, and that cost them the game. And I think Gase is a very overrated coach. And right now, Miami is, with a couple of breaks going the other way, they could be a lot worse than 5 and 6. And now they've got some tough games coming up. So I don't consider them a playoff contender. But you look at I'm a little disappointed in the Steelers the last couple of weeks. Roethlisberger played great the week before in bringing the team back, although he put them in a bad position with the interceptions. But yesterday against Denver, the team they should have beaten, they had turnovers. One where receiver fumbled the ball going into the end zone, and it resulted in a turnover. That's a dumb rule, by the way. But then I think that rule is going to change, but it doesn't help them now. And they also, Roethlisberger, again, had a couple of bad interceptions in the game. He forced one in there at the end when they were going in to actually take the lead in the last part of the game, and or at least tie it. And then there's something funny about that team right now, and I'm going to tell you what it is. They should have paid Bell, because their running back is as good a season as he has a turnover problem. And he fumbled again in this game as they were moving down the field to win the game. And it was a key turnover in the game. And that's, if they have Bell right now, that's a win yesterday. And they finally paid for it.
Well, the Steelers, over the past few years, have had a tendency to play down to their competition. I mean, they're a great team. They've got a great talent. Tomlin's done a great job for a lot of years, but they've had a tendency over the past few years to play down to their competition and keep teams in the games when they shouldn't. And the last 2 weeks, they have not played well. And in games that you would have thought that they would have won easily, they didn't do that. They were fortunate to beat the Jags. They weren't as fortunate, couldn't beat Denver. But the whole issue with Bell is a crazy situation. But we're getting down to the playoff time. We got a big game coming up on Thursday. You have the Saints visiting the Cowboys, and that is a very important game, especially now that Philadelphia has gotten their win yesterday over the Giants, which you and I were talking a little bit about it before we went on air, as to why the Giants didn't give Saquon Barkley the ball in the second half, only 5 times.
Yep. It's kind of similar to what mistake Dallas was making with Elliott, and not giving him the ball, and they finally woke up and look what happened with them. But Barkley here's a guy who had over 200 yards against Philadelphia the first time they played, and he was having a similar type of game, and all of a sudden they decided they were going to put the ball in Eli's hands again. And from the first quarter on, big mistake. And Philadelphia got wise to it, and they just started putting pressure on Eli. And Eli just caved, as he has done when he's had pressure. When he doesn't have pressure, he has the 17 for 18 game the week before. And so, he forced the ball into coverage a couple of times, and it didn't work out. And still, the Giants were in a position to win the game at the end. Philadelphia's got problems, and they don't have a running game, and yet they ran the ball when they had to, and they made third down conversions at the end of the game when they had to. And it was because the Giants' defense was just worn out, because the Giants kept going 3 and out in the second half. And that defense for the Giants was on the field so much, I think they just got tired. That's what happened in that game.
Sure did. They scored 3 points in the second half after having a 16-point lead at halftime. The issues with the Green Bay Packers, they have a lot of injuries. They had more injuries in the game. Aaron Rodgers, of course, is a great player, but you can't do it alone. There's a team and the Giants, the Giants are out of it, obviously. Packers are probably out of it.
Well, the Packers can't protect Rodgers. Minnesota just teed off on him, I think they sacked him, and they knocked him around a few times, and he couldn't do anything against them. Minnesota really dominated that game, and their quarterback, without pressure on him, played well, and those 2 receivers for Minnesota played a great game. And I wondered why, you're talking about running backs, why Minnesota, although Chris Collinsworth talked about what a different dimension the second running back did, I wondered why they were going to him so much, because he was good for 2 yards a carry. I didn't get that, nor did I get the commentary. He gave him a different dimension. He was slowing him down. But anyway, but Minnesota's a much better team than Green Bay, and Green Bay, that game could have been worse. But I thought that Minnesota took their foot off the pedal in the second half, and I thought they made a mistake in not going for a field goal when they were ahead by. They could have gone from when they got down, they got they recovered the kickoff, and they had a chance to really put that game away, and they went for a 4th down and 2 instead of taking the field goal, which would have put them ahead by 16 points instead of 10, which would have changed the game a little bit at the end. But it allowed Green Bay to have a chance to tie at the end. And I thought that was a coaching mistake on their part. They should have taken the field goal because they weren't going to make 4th and 2. They couldn't run up the middle on Green Bay. That was the one edge that Green Bay had.
Yeah, we see coaching decisions.
And they went with that running back who the announcer said he was going to change the complexion of the game. He did. He didn't make it.
Right, right. Well, what do you got coming up this weekend, Hank? We got a busy post-Thanksgiving weekend or week ahead of us.
We got a lot of conference playoff games on Saturday, so it'll be a busy college football day. Got some attractive NFL games. Dallas is going to have a tough game, I think, on Thursday night. And you got with New Orleans coming to town. And then you've got the Cigar Mile is a $750,000 stakes race at Aqueduct. It's the biggest race of the fall meet at Aqueduct, and they've got a couple of other stakes races behind it. So finally, you got some good horse racing coming up this weekend.
That should be a good week. Anybody want Hank's picks or my picks, or articles, podcasts, etc., go to jimfeist.com. We'll be there all week with good information. And Hank, I want to thank you today for your time, and have a great day. We'll talk to you again on Wednesday.
All right, Jim.
Thank you, Hank.
Hey, Jim.
Hold on.
Hey, Jim.
Yes.